What's up, CoinConcede crowd? I'm Rob from Velen's Chosen podcast.
And I'm Eve.
And I'm Grant.
And you're about to hit your first turn for
CoinConcede.
Greetings.
Hello.
Greet. My greeting.
Well met.
I greet you.
Greetings, traveler.
Greetings, friend.
The pleasure is mine.
Hello world, welcome to CoinConcede. This is episode 131. We are a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. Joining you live from Gadgets in New York, it's me, RidiculousHat. And we've got a few of our friends here with us today. You know a couple of them. We've got, from Karazhan, California, Botticus.
Well, hi.
How's it going, buddy?
Going great. I'm excited about tonight. Should be a fun show tonight.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm excited too, in fact. And you know who else is excited? Our friend from the Maelstrom in Louisiana, Appa.
I'm very ready to talk about new cards. Super excited.
Yes, you are an exclusive club called Every Hearthstone Player, where we all just live until the rotation, and right now the waiting room is packed to the brim.
Multiple Hearthstone Christmases per year.
Yes.
Is what I like to think of them as.
But this is like the big Christmas, because it's the only Christmas where they give us the present of taking things away.
Or I guess, to be fair to all non-Christmas practicing people, I guess holidays is a better term to use. It's like a Hearthstone holidays.
Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Festivus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never been so excited to have something taken away from me. Well, taken away from everybody. I'm excited to have Barnes taken away from everyone in Standard.
I remember I was listening actually to the 1600 Dust. They had Nate Wolf on this weekend, and they were talking about rotation. And Nate's like, "I just live with that, 'cause wild." So just remember.
Yeah, I'm starting to do both formats like consistently, and now I'm starting to like feel the pain that is Barnes and Naga Sea Witch.
Yeah, and forever. Or at least until they decide to make a change. But also, I don't mean to extend the show before we get to our fourth guest. He's very special, and he's so special that we didn't ask him which World of Warcraft city he was from, so we're going to make one up right on the spot. He's from Stormwind. We have our buddy...
G'day.
Midgame. Hello, Midgame. How's it going down there?
Yeah, look, I'm sitting in the same park as all of the parrots from Blister Guy's show, and as the show started, 3 started attacking me, so we're off to a good start.
They can hear podcasts, because last time Blister said there's no birds, and then the second we start, they all just go off.
Yeah, there's literally 3 now, and they weren't here before we started, so we're not off to a great start.
I think we're off to an excellent start. We've got that element of familiarity.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Midgame. And let's go over the show outline real quick for the listeners. We're going to start with our intro that we're doing right now. We've got talk about our ladder and some of the news, the tournament recap, the explanations, which of course will just be new cards. We're all excited. And it's really unlikely we'll have time for questions and email, so I'll just dispel that expectation now. We're just going to talk about new cards a lot. But first, CoinConcede, supported in large part by you, the listener. If you'd like to find out how you can support us and receive rewards in return, head to patreon.com/CoinConcede. All right, Botticus, why don't you figure out what exactly is going on with our guest over there?
All right, so let's start it off nice and easy. I want to get to know Midgame because we haven't had him on the podcast before. So let's just get into it. So how did you get into Hearthstone in the first place?
So, kind of really weirdly, I got into Hearthstone due to a British YouTube group called the Yogscast, who posted a few videos of them playing it. It looked really fun. This is when I was in year 11 in high school, and started playing, and this was just after Nax came out. And then, yeah, kind of just went ahead and kept playing and have been enjoying it and getting better ever since.
Awesome. So when how long into getting into Hearthstone did you kind of find the CoinConcede community, and how did you kind of get involved with us?
So initially, I was mainly kind of looking for Hearthstone content on YouTube, but then I've been listening to a whole heap of podcasts for a while and started looking for some podcasts and found one called The Unstable Portal. And then in the little bit before the show starts where people are like, we're from this show, you'll now listen to this, CoinConcede came on and I was like, oh yeah, I'll go give them a listen. And I've been listening ever since. I'm not really sure when that was, but it was only a year or two into me playing the game, and I've listened to every episode since. I kind of got more involved as time went on and recently became a Patreon and also helped out with the past listener leagues that we've run.
Interesting to say listener league. So we definitely brought you on the cast for a specific reason. Why don't you kind of tell our listeners why we're having you on this week?
Well, as I mentioned, I helped out with the last listener leagues, and we've decided to bring them back. Yay!
Yeah.
Did those birds like just start going off whenever you said that?
Yeah,
That's
they're going
amazing
crazy.
timing. These birds are so hype. I love them. They're so great.
I need to get the
So-
birds as a bumper. That needs to happen.
So why don't you tell the listeners if you can kind of what our plans are.
So plans are to make listener leagues a little bit more regular than they have been, because obviously after the first two, which were kind of spaced a little bit far apart, it's kind of dropped off a little bit. So we kind of thought that the best way to get this happening regularly was to have one per set. So kind of like you start just after each set is released. So the sign-ups for each one will be the month that the set is released. And then it'll start, the actual league itself will start the month afterwards, run for the month, and then the playoffs will be the following month. So that's kind of the rough plan for getting them to happen a little bit more often, having 3 of them per year. We're going to start off one soon, obviously because the set's being released this month. So starting next month, it'll going to be a best of 3 format with bans, much similar to the first one, which Botticus will obviously know very well.
Yeah, and so I think we're gonna probably do the first one as best of 3 conquest. Likely the other 2 will be different formats. We want to kind of try to give a bit more variety out of them. If we can make it work, I'd like to do a team format, but we're not firm on exactly how we're going to do that. And we're gonna be. Yeah, we're going to be putting a lot more details in the Discord. So make sure if you're not already part of the Discord, you join it, CoinConcede or discord.coinconcede, and hopefully I'm hoping we can get signups to start next week, with obviously the start time being May 1st. And then we have a new kind of grand prize I'm pretty excited to talk about. We're going to have the winner is going to have the option to guest on the show the week after they win. And there will be an additional prize we are still determining. But yeah, I think that would be pretty cool to bring on whoever wins this next listener league and kind of talk to them about their relationship with Hearthstone and kind of how the tournament went.
Again,
yeah, and
if you familiar with.
But yeah, so I'm excited to have Midgame on. He's going to be mostly spearheading making sure all of this kind of gets taken care of. He's going to be putting together the tournament, kind of organizing everything, and we're really excited to kind of have him be a bigger part of CoinConcede, because I know the Listener League is something that a lot of our listeners really enjoy having and doing. So it should be a fun few months, and having it be consistent is important, because I want people to be able to play and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Really looking forward to it.
Yay.
So I think that's all we had for the announcement. Sorry it wasn't a new card like some of the people in Discord might have been thinking. Maybe one day.
Listen, our surprise will absolutely dominate the mid-game of every format. So I think we did just fine. And I'm sure nobody saw that pun coming. And I appreciate the pity laugh mid-game. Thank you very much for that. So,
I have been meeting up with some people on ladder with virtually the same name. I've now hit early game and end game, so we've almost got the full family together.
yeah, well, as long as you hit early game first. Very important. 'Cause otherwise, it wouldn't be the same. So anyways, thank you, Midgame, for coming on. And while you're here, how have you done on ladder lately? Have you been playing at all?
So I haven't played too much this week because I've been at quite a big debating tournament up in Sydney, which is why I'm where Blister Guy was recording with the Parrots. So I haven't played much this week, but last season I played a fair bit, kind of mixing between Control Warlock and OTK Paladin. Managed to get up to final boss, rank 1 5 stars, and then fell all the way back down to 5 0 stars. So that was good fun.
Oof, that's a drop.
But that meant that I started on rank 5 this season, so that's a good start.
Oh, right, because your rank reset is based on the peak rank, right? It's based on your season
Correct.
chest, which is also
Yes.
It's really nice that you can't just plummet all the way back down and have it matter.
Yeah, it was a nice bit of solace that when reset happened, I actually gained stars, which was pretty cool.
That's weird.
Yeah, I gained
Blizzard's
5
like,
stars.
we're sorry your month went so poorly. Here's some stars to go with your golden stuff. Yeah. Well,
And then, last month I also managed to finish off the 9 out of 9 golden classes, so that was also a good, nice little goal that I had.
ooh, golden. What was your last one?
My last one was Warrior, which I ended up doing in Wild because I just couldn't buy a win in Standard, and now that Control Warrior is actually becoming a thing in Standard, I feel like I kind of cheated that a little bit.
Well, I think winning with Dead Man's Hand Warrior is about the same as losing with any other deck in terms of time commitment. So
True.
you probably broke even there. I assume you played Pirate Warrior in Wild?
No, I played Patron Warrior.
Ooh.
It was Patron Quest Warrior, which was a deck that Control the board made, and it was a lot of fun.
Patron Quest?
Yeah, kind of weird, but it actually works and just wins lots of games.
This sounds super nutty.
Get in here!
I had that
I wanna
ready.
Try this. We need to like link this list
Yeah, it's
'cause I want
Yeah,
this.
I will find it and link it to you.
the sound that you heard, listeners, was all three hosts becoming distracted at the same time, desperately looking for Patron Quest Warrior. Because, boy, that sounds fun. Yeah. Man,
good.
well, congratulations. 9 out of 9 is a big commitment. How does it feel to just be free?
It was really good. I spent a good 2 months getting Warlock there by playing Control Warlock before Void Daddy was released. So I feel like I just mistimed everything because I missed out on when Pirate Warrior was good to get Golden Warrior, and then hit Warlock early. So, but that was all right. It was one of the big goals I had because I kind of just play a bit of everything, and so I'm very happy with it. It's nice being able to queue into any deck and sing that shiny hero.
Yes. You're one of the people
Well,
now. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Alba.
after I got my 9th golden class, for like a couple days immediately after, I was just like, what now?
Yeah,
What is
yeah,
there to
it's
do
a-
now?
Yeah, it's that weird feeling of like you've had this goal forever, and then you get it's like, did I beat Hearthstone? Did I win the game?
It almost felt like that when I hit Legend as well. So, I don't know what I'm doing now.
Well, you're running listener leagues and getting attacked by birds. That's what you're doing.
Yeah, that sounds like a good compromise.
And in 2 weeks, we'll be back to theory crafting again. All right. Well, Mr. Appa, why don't you tell us how you're doing?
Haven't really been doing too much. I've been messing around in Wild. Mostly, I think that's where most of my games have been played so far. And I got up to rank 4 in that with Silverhand Recruit Paladin. Boo. It's so boring, but it's so strong. Like, I was losing games with fun decks in Wild, and I was like, I really just want to climb. So I recrafted my muster for battles and quartermasters, and now I'm just like, man, this is boring, but I'm crushing people, so I just keep playing it, I guess. And in Standard, I'm just having fun on ladder with Big Spell Mage, because that's like one of my favorite decks of all time. It's so much fun to play.
Yeah, Big Spell Mage is really enjoyable, and just that it kind of gets that Control Warrior endgame feel where it's like, I'm almost dead, but you can never kill me. And it also is Mage and it's not Warrior, so you get to play all the fun Mage stuff. And you just have infinite board clears. I've really enjoyed it. And Meteor is surprisingly powerful.
Yeah,
It is
Meteor
a very good card.
Yeah. Well, and Appa, I'm in about the same boat as you. I am clearing my quest because free packs are free packs. But beyond that, that's about where I am. Clearing quests, I've played a good amount of Arena. I've used Tavern Brawl. I've done a couple podcasts. And, on ladder, I'm enjoying myself. But I think I'm playing more Wild than Standard right now, but that's still not a lot of either. I will say I'm still playing Breakfast Paladin because it is one of the best decks I've ever played in any format. It feels really disgusting. And shout out to our friend Reganus Prime, who is the one that brought the deck to our attention and is currently rank 4 Wild Legend today on April
Wow.
4th. Yes, he has 1 legend point per day of the month, which is not a real metric, but is kind of funny. And also, he's rank 4 legend, oh my god. So, cheer him on, twitter.com/ReganusPrime. The guy is a wild, stone-cold stunner. He's really, really good, and it's been fun to watch him. He's going for rank 1. Hope he gets there. And that's been kind of the excitement I've been looking at. And you'll notice we've saved the best excitement for last, because our friend Botticus, he was telling us about ladder in the last episode. Botticus, why don't you tell us how the season ended and what you've been doing since then?
So I had as I expected, a pretty stressful weekend because I kind of figured out a little bit last minute that I had an outside shot at making prelims, and I had never gotten I had never even been above rank 95 before. So I felt like I was in a decent position, and then there was all these legend changes, which I actually think kind of improved my spot. But I played all night Friday night and pretty much all day Saturday, which I apologize to the listeners. That's why the show got delayed a day, because I was really trying to focus as hard as I could to do as well as I could on ladder. And then I was relatively happy to have finished. I finished around 165. So it's my first ever top 200 finish in a points season. I have one other top 200 during the off season, which felt a little easier. But basically, what kind of happened this weekend is I did not feel like I was making a lot of mistakes, and I think that's a really good thing in the sense that it means that I have a ton to learn still, because I know I definitely was making mistakes, but I wasn't noticing them right away, because it feels really bad when you notice your mistakes in the game, because those are ones that you can fix, but it's the ones that you don't know that you need to fix that kind of gives hope that you can improve. There's still a lot to improve. Definitely one of the biggest things that I figured out this weekend is that I'm not really good at being able to switch decks when I need to. Before the weekend, Priest was one of my best matchups on the Dude Paladin deck by a lot. Like, it was close to 70% matchup. And then on the day, I went 4-18 or something against Priest. So
Oof.
something changed, and I just wasn't able to adapt fast enough. So Friday wasn't going as well. I switched to Secret Mage, got a pretty decent streak in, but wanted to go to sleep and wake up and start over again. And then I kind of flopped back and forth on Saturday, and towards the end of the day, I couldn't figure out how to beat Priest, so I queued up Quest Rogue, which was beating Priest, but I did that about 2 hours too late because by that time it was getting towards the end of the day. People started playing the more aggressive decks because they really needed to try to force through finishes. So I ended on Control Warlock just to kind of secure a top 200 because I was falling out of the top 200 at that point. Pretty much had no shot at like a top 50 or anything like that. So just kind of secured my top 200, and I'm happy that I did that, but it honestly just wasn't good enough. As good as it is, it's just not good enough. So have a lot to learn for next season, lots to kind of put into practice and figure out, and excited to play a bunch more Hearthstone, and hopefully I can do better this next season.
Well, thank you for your honesty, Botticus, and I think it speaks to your character that you say, I didn't see myself making a lot of mistakes, and that we didn't take a one-way trip to Salttown. That instead we said, that means I'm making mistakes I don't know about, as opposed to RNG, RNG, RNG. So, appreciate your perspective on that, and I think as well, you were probably set up to maybe have picked the worst possible month to grind for a top legend finish in Hearthstone's history, because there were some pretty notable issues with how the ladder ranking worked. And the reason I picked you here is because I love a good segue. And by the way, time for the news.
So speaking of Legend Ladder, March was a clown fiesta. to put it in simple terms, it was the resets whenever they happened were messed up. People reset at rank 1 to 5 stars. Some people reset with no stars at rank 5. I think I got reset to like rank 5 stars or something. I was like, man, this sucks. I was promised rank 4, but it didn't really bother me all that much. And then at the end of the month, Blizzard changed I think it was the like MMR gains that people get between legend games, like when they win or lose. And there was a lot of concern about this within at least the professional community on Twitter. And I was just like following a bunch of people on Twitter and keeping up with it, and people were very, very upset about this and desperately asking like the Blizzard development team for Hearthstone for answers. And it was just like radio silence for a good bit of time until, when was this blue post made? 5 days ago, so it's the 31st, right? Or the 30th? Yeah, so this was on the last day of the month or the day before, where I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically what it said was, we changed some stuff and we're sorry for not communicating. Which, whenever I read this, I posted in Discord something along the lines of, I could keep going on and on about Blizzard's lack of communication ad nauseum, but it seems like the problem is becoming more obvious to more people, which is that the Hearthstone dev team is kind of bad at communicating, and that's pretty important, an important skill to have whenever you have such a passionate player base that Hearthstone does, especially whenever your ranked ladder system is such a big deal in pro play, because currently it's the easiest and one of the most efficient ways to grind points, because tournaments can be fairly volatile and boil down to some high rolls and stuff, but you can kind of control how much you play on ladder and just jam a bunch of games at a solid win rate and pick up a bunch of legend points.
I do think on this though, I saw from, it was either Ike or Tic Tac posted that they were very happy that that dev team had kind of realized that they made a mistake and were admitting to it, which they thought was a pretty big step in them getting better at it because they felt up to this point they hadn't really realized that they were at fault. And I think that's probably quite a good point to make.
Yeah, we're definitely in a situation where we've gone from no communication and kind of a black box. And you think about a year ago, right? Spirit Clause was in standard for 6 months at 1 mana. And now you think about any nerf of a card of that power level, unless you talk about patches, which I think we could discuss, could have been nerfed earlier, but that's a separate conversation. But you look at Crystal Core, or you look at the Druid Infestation, pun not intended, but we can go with it, of KFT and Corridor Creeper as well. You look at the speed with which they communicated, the nature of how they communicated, and the way in which they nerfed. I think they made really good decisions there in a really open, transparent way. Now, when it comes to tournament structure and ladder structure, that's not been an area where Hearthstone devs, where Team 5 has really had to communicate, because there just hasn't been that much to say. The ladder change, I think, was the first time that they highlighted that they were going to address these long-standing community of life or quality of life issues with non-legend ladder, and I think they did a pretty solid job. Most people that I've spoken to, and I think we can anecdotally agree, that the non-legend changes were a win, but they kind of put the legend ladder changes, or lack thereof, in stark contrast. And this month was a disaster for the vocal players that make the game their livelihood. And I think that I'm glad they said something, but I'm sorry they chose to non-transparently mess with players' revenue stream. That kind of rubs me the wrong way. They did apologize, which is more than we've seen in the past. They did admit what happened before the month was over. But if you look at, we actually have a really awesome article linked in the news by, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Tom Matthiest on Twitter. He wrote a really, really exhaustive, in-depth article about kind of the impact it's had on these players, and that feeling of hopelessness you get when it takes you 10 games won to make up for the MMR in 1 or 2 games lost. And it's kind of highlighting how Hearthstone at its core and the super high level is built on unhealthy time investment in a lot of ways, and that needs some addressing.
Yeah, this whole I don't really know what to say about this month, because it's one of those things where at the start of the month we didn't even have ladder for a couple days, which was really weird, and I was kind of okay with it because it as long as it meant for future seasons it's going to be better and they're going to be able to fix it after they get it done, it's fine. And then there was the whole debacle where the MMR was being super weird right at the beginning, because some people only did 1 win to get to Legends, so their MMR was super high and people couldn't pass them. So then they changed it so that the MMR swings were greater, and then they changed it back. And it's kind of hard for me to kind of describe how I totally feel about it, but it, on one hand, it just didn't feel fair that the people who chose to grind a couple days earlier were able to take advantage of something that nobody knew was coming. And we see this in a lot of different companies. It's definitely not just Blizzard, where it just didn't feel like the left hand was talking to the right hand. And it was like, hey, we're going to make these changes, and the people just didn't get to know about it. Like, nobody got to tell them, oh, we should probably tell these players that things are about to be a little different. And I think most of the pro players seemed to agree that the changes were good. It was just the fact that they didn't know about them, so they weren't able to react to them in a way. So in a way it was fair because it happened to everybody, but it just so happened that a couple people got kind of screwed out of the deal. I don't really know a whole lot else to say about it, but it was just a super weird season. Yeah,
I saw a couple of pro players saying that they think that they should have just abandoned giving any points for this season. But do you think that would have been an adequate solution? Because I kind of feel a bit, I don't know. I don't think that was the right thing to do either.
Oh man, if I finished rank 1 legend for a season that I was told would count and then it didn't count, I would be furious.
Yeah, and even if they had said like a couple days before, there are a lot of people that worked the entire month up until that point to try to set them up for a good finish. Like I would be super upset because it's my first top 200 finish, even though it doesn't qualify me for prelims. Like I specifically tried to get extra points just on the off chance for the rest of the year I have like an insane year and maybe I need those extra couple points to finish in one of like the bronze tiers or something. Like it's very doubtful that I get there, but saying that something that the whole month you've been working for, all of a sudden you don't get to work for it, I think would be even worse. But I don't know. It's just kind of a feel bad scenario all around. But hopefully it's just the next month kind of goes normally. That's kind of all we can hope for. And maybe they think next time before they make major changes like this to communicate something. I mean, the fact that we got any communication is good, but we can always hope for better, right? Without complaining too much, I think is the way I try to look at it.
Yeah, this has that like I've been thinking while everybody's talking. This is like we have so much that we could talk about on this subject that we could do an entire like show on it. And I think after the show, I'm gonna start writing. I haven't written a blog post in a while, but I'll probably write one about Legend Ladder and what I think could change. So I'll probably end up linking that in the show notes because I'll probably have that done pretty quick. But yeah, since this is something we could talk about for just like hours on end, should probably move on to the next bit of news here.
I admire your restraint and appreciate you hosting when I am not.
And yeah, the next bit of news is far less serious and definitely less salt inducing. And it's a little article that Blizzard published on their website, basically saying that the Murloc like native tongue Nerglish will be what's it called?
They're translating the game into Nerglish.
Yes. There was like a specific term.
Localization?
Yes, localization. I used to do this. I used to do that as a job. I don't even know the word. My God. Yeah. So they were basically saying that Nerglish is going to have its own localization in game, and you could set your game to it and stuff, which I'm pretty sure is not happening because it was written on April 1st. So it was a little April Fool's article, but it was kind of funny to see these translations of cards we've already seen. One is they have like SI7 Agent, Ironbark Protector, Eldor Peacekeeper, King Crush, Murloc, War Leader. I'm not going to read them because that's a bunch of L's, R's, and M's, and I don't know how to pronounce all of those in a string.
I would absolutely play Hearthstone in Nerglish. Absolutely.
Me too. It would be pretty fun.
But so wait, if you
Yeah.
played Morgul in Nerglish, when you emoted, would the bubble that popped up be in English or in Nerglish? Because right now he speaks the Murloc language, he speaks Nerglish, but it pops up with the translated bubble, right?
Yeah, it pops up in brackets.
Yeah.
Hold on, I gotta think about this.
I guess we'll never know unless they do decide to actually release the Nerglish version of the game.
It would make sense if he spoke in English, but it was translated into Nerglish in the text bubble.
But, oh god, my head hurts. Why wouldn't they just take away the
Yeah.
brackets and let Morgul be free?
Shh. Don't think about it.
That's-
Don't think about it too much.
Just keep talking. I'm gonna sit over here and be mad this isn't gonna happen.
I said this was less salt-inducing, and now Hat's even saltier than before.
Murlocs live in saltwater, Appa. I'm being like the Murlocs.
Anyways, the next bit of news is Pathra's card reveal. She made a video on YouTube for her new card reveal, and I think that's a card we're going to get into later, right? Yes.
Yeah, did you see the video?
I didn't actually see the video. I didn't know this. I didn't know this was a video until like I read the show notes like right before we started.
Yeah, so I put this in the news here because last week we talked about Ali Strauss's video and how she kind of went above and beyond, and Pathra's card reveal video was also incredibly awesome. So I wanted to kind of put the video. I like highlighting when people go above and beyond just kind of talking about the card. So she had a cool little intro to her video that everyone should definitely check out if they haven't had the time to do so.
Yeah, the last bit of news for this episode is kind of putting a spotlight on Tempo Storm's little tournament that they ran. They call it, I think, an expansion draft. And what it was, they have 4 players.
Yep.
So they had 4
Eight.
players, and
Eight.
each of them.
I know.
Drafted 3.
No, you're wrong. 4 players. You're right. I'm editing this out. It's gone. It never happened.
Yeah. 4 players. They drafted 3 sets. The sets could not be chosen more than twice. And then you built decks using only those sets. I believe it was 4 decks. It was Saiyan, Racy,
Chalky, and Ant.
Chalky.
Ant.
Yeah. And so they had a little mini tournament. We linked the video to the Twitch VOD in the show notes if you want to check it out. It's just kind of a different way to be able to experience Hearthstone, like different formats. People are always talking about different formats they wish were in the game. I kind of figured it was nice to highlight this cool little event that they put on. Maybe you can try it out with your friends or something along those lines.
This is also not the first time that Tempo Storm's done something like this, because they have that kind of like sealed format draft simulator on their website as well, which I remember they ran a tournament for a few years ago, which is kind of cool that they're kind of trying to push all of these new ways to play these games and different creative deck building ideas. So yeah, props to Tempo Storm for exploring a number of possibilities like that.
Oh yeah, that was the Red Bull Team Brawl. That was the origin of 29 for sure.
Yes.
Yep.
Well, that looks like it just about does it for the news. So I'm going to pass it off to Hat here for the tournament results.
I can do that. And yeah, I would definitely recommend checking out the expansion draft if you have some time. It was a shorter tournament. I mean, it was 6 hours of video. It was a lot of fun to watch. It was definitely interesting. It's not going to necessarily help you be a better player in terms of taking the skills of you see from these decks and translate to the ladder, but the way these pros navigated in unfamiliar circumstances was really interesting, and it was a lot of fun to watch. And, these guys are all friends. But let's talk tournaments that aren't made-up formats.
It's the grand tournament!
All right, so the tournament this week, well, there was a tournament circuit that closed down. That was TESPA. The group stages are done. Props to Cora for being the main caster and getting a new friend every single week. And she was the anchor. She got a new caster every week, and some were more experienced, some were newer at it, but they all did wonderful work. This past week it was Nostum, and Nostum is a longtime pro player, longtime streamer, and actually was a great caster, and is going to be casting with Cora at PAX East. So this was the group stages. There were tons and tons of teams that entered. This was the open group stage. 53 teams are advancing to double elimination. And so there's a lot to cover here. There was a lot of Hearthstone played. There were some highlight matches that they chose to cover on the tournament stream, but we had 53 teams advance out of hundreds. Everyone that was 5-2 or better moves on to the playoff stage. Now, we only had 2 7-0 undefeated teams. One is Trine Thunder, Night Raven, Yolosweg, and M. Martin, and the other from Iowa State is Squid, RLX24, and Quantum, that's Nerfstone Gamers. By the way, Quantum, she was the WESG Women's Champion. You may recognize her. She's really good at Hearthstone. So if you see her on the ladder, keep the coin for turn 1. You may need it, if you know what I mean. So the other tournament was the Wild Championships, and that was this weekend. If you recall, we covered the qualifiers. There were 2 from the Americas region, 2 from the Europe region, and 2 players from the APAC region that all qualified, and then there were 2 from China. Now, the Chinese players were not quite sure how they qualified, and this is actually the source of a little bit of drama, in that the belief among many high-placing Wild players, and we can't independently corroborate this, so we're not going to say it's fact, but what is being discussed is if these players were selected, were invited, and were not qualifiers. There was no record of a Chinese qualification tournament. There was no real statement one way or another. But the players that were sent to the Wild tournament from the Chinese region were Hamster and LVGE, who are known pros in Standard and in various tournaments. So keep that in mind as we go on. Hamster did end up winning the tournament over Jinsu in the finals, who qualified from South Korea. Reno Jackson and LVGE were 3rd and 4th. And then the top 8 was Dab, Faley, Jonah Ra, and Alex MM, who were the qualifiers all through the various regions of Wild through the tournaments. If we look at the tournament meta here, we had, well, it's definitely different from Standard. We had 6 classes represented, 6 mages, 4 of them were Reno Mage, 1 Secret, and 1 good old Flame Waker Tempo. 6 Druids, 3 were Malygos. If you listened to me on Off Curve this week, then you probably heard me call this the Aviana Fun combo. And also Jade Druid were the other 3. There were 6 Paladins, 4 Silverhand, a Reno, and a Secret Reno Paladin. Yeah, I don't know either. There were 5 Warlocks, 3 Cubes, 2 Renos, 5 Priests, a Combo Dragon, a non-Combo Dragon, 2 Big, and a Control Priest. And then 3 Warriors, 2 were N'Zoth, Deadman Tan, 1 was a Pirate Warrior. This format had a ton of N'Zoth. It was the most played Legendary with 12 of them, followed by Lothub and Reno. For Epics, Dirty Rats and Geist, bring those because you'll need them. You want to disrupt combos, and you want to disrupt Jade Idols. There were 9 Doomsayer decks as well. In the rares, 9 Sludge Belchers, 9 Deathlord decks. So this tournament, it was interesting, but the finals was kind of anticlimactic because after the finals, Hamster, who's the winner, he said that he could have played better and wasn't proud of his play and admitted that he didn't really know the tournament all that well. If you recall, he was one of the players that came from the China region. So for the player that won the tournament to say, I didn't play well and I don't know the format, is kind of disheartening. With that being said, I don't think he played as well as played as poorly as he said he did, and I really enjoyed watching the last game of the finals because Jade Druid versus Deadman Tan Warrior. I mean, the Deadman Tan Warrior is definitely not advantaged, but they did have Skulk and Geist. They needed to see it before when they did, and in fact, in this particular game, it was about 1 turn before when they did. But it was enjoyable to see Deadman Tan getting punished because that deck is infuriating to play against. I would definitely watch the finals. I would recommend it. I do think Wild is a really developing format, but as of right now, I'm not really sure we saw it developed yet. I think we just saw kind of in progress its growth, but not its culmination. What do you all think? Did anyone on here get to watch it or have any feedback on the perspective of Wild right now?
I watched a little bit of it and just thought that it was really interesting to see kind of the variety of decks there. I kind of got sucked in because I've forgotten the name of the player, but the player who did bring that Reno Paladin, who brought, I think it was 2 Reno decks, and kind of got sucked in by that, went and watched a few games, and it was just really interesting to see, like you said, it's not a refined format particularly, so you've got a whole range of different decks and people trying different strategies, and that makes it quite a diverse and interesting tournament to watch.
Yeah, and that was Faley who brought the Reno Paladin, and this deck is juicy. I would definitely recommend checking it out. It plays Dr. Boom, it plays Enter the Coliseum, and it plays all kinds of other greatest hits that you may remember from former Standard and current Wild. It also plays Call to Arms, so just be aware of that. And that card's good. But yeah, you're right. The format is definitely unrefined, though I will say that a lot of these players had similar strategies in mind. I think the format in terms of deck construction is actually pretty close to optimal in a lot of ways. Just a question of how the players are approaching it. What do you all think, Appa and Botticus? How did you get to see it?
I didn't actually get to see this. This is on my to-watch list. I'll probably watch this later as I'm falling asleep. And then some tomorrow, because I'm actually getting really, really interested in Wild, because I'm like, the more I play it, the more I think it's just a great format that really would be awesome with more support. So I am excited to watch this. I think the format's in a pretty good place. Naga Sea Witch and Giants aside. So yeah, I haven't watched it yet, but I'm gonna get around to it.
I did not watch it. I don't really plan to watch it. Wild is just not really my thing. I enjoyed playing Reganus's Breakfast Paladin deck in Wild, and that's about as far as my extent of Wild knowledge goes. Although speaking kind of briefly on the winner, like I don't think it's really out of the ordinary for someone to kind of say that they didn't play as well. Obviously, you would like to think that the person who won the tournament played perfectly, but that's usually not the case. It's really hard to play a perfect game of Hearthstone. I mean, the game is quite difficult. And it just kind of goes to show that you can be successful even if you don't have an extensive wild knowledge. I think that you can definitely gain a lot of percentages by having a lot of wild knowledge, but I think wild is a format that more people who have any interest in it should definitely try, just because if you have a decent standard collection, you really don't need a lot to get into wild, and for a lot of people I think it's fun. And if there was more support for like the competitive side, I could definitely see myself getting into wild, but until we see more tournaments like that, then I'm kind of going to be sticking to standard.
All right, that's fair. It's I like that we all have opinions on it, because this time last year we were all like, why would we play wild? So that's a good progress. All right. Well, that's all.
I think that the longer it goes into having, them being separate formats, it makes quite a big difference to the attractiveness of wild, because the more cards that you kind of have there that you don't have in standard, the kind of more weird and wild strategies you can get that actually function.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think Blizzard, I had a theory. I talked about this on Into the Wild a little bit, where I think Blizzard intentionally pulled the wild cards from the store for the first year it was out and distanced standard from the format by design to make it feel different when it came back and prevent people from playing it when it was just standard with Shredder and Boom. Because standard with Shredder, Belcher, and Boom for an entire year, if that was a format that people were actively playing, I think would have not helped build it. I think it would have hurt it more than removing support for a year and bringing it back did. Because people dust a lot of wild cards, and that's always going to happen. They had kind of a graceful solution with the Hall of Fame, but by restricting the format a bit and making it less appetizing, while it was not really all that different from standard, they kind of made it more interesting now, and I think we're seeing that play out.
So they got me back into the format. So would we call that more appetizing?
I'm proud of you, but I did roll my eyes. I want everyone to know that.
That's the sign of a good pun.
Yeah.
Is like you can hear the eye rolls. That's how you know you've made a good pun.
You're right.
I heard the crickets. I didn't hear the birds though. Did the birds leave?
Yeah, the birds are gone.
No, come back.
So we've learned they like podcasts, but they hate puns.
I think the fire engine that came by just when I had my mic muted then probably scared him off.
Ah, well, I hope they come back when it comes time for a card discussion, because I really enjoyed them serenading you earlier, even though, it was a good amount of background noise, but it was worth it. It was pleasant. It was like being in a Disney movie. All right.
I'll see what I can do.
Speaking of new cards, do you guys want to speak of new cards?
Yes.
Okay.
Very much so.
Bumper.
So much.
All right. We've got some new cards. And we're going to talk about them a lot. But I'm going to give my personal disclaimer that I'm not going to use the words good or bad. Those are words I'm going to step away from, and I think we discussed this a little bit last episode, that it's all about context. We can talk about interactions. We can talk about, is it expensive? Is it efficient? Is it powerful? Is it unique? Is it interesting? But I think saying this card is good or bad sends the wrong message, because we don't know where it's going to land. And that's my little soapbox right now. Appa, take it away.
I make no promises on saying good or bad.
My opinion is right and yours is wrong. Here are the reasons.
Oh no, I will not. After the call to arms fiasco, I'm not claiming any of my opinions are right.
That Botticus may have learned.
I mean, we meme a lot. We meme a lot about Botticus missing maybe one of the most powerful cards in history, but keep in mind that the universe decided that Spirit Claws was a bad card for a month after it was printed. Just be aware. Well, it's okay, Appa. We can't all be like you. Come on.
I've had some goofs and gaffes though in card predictions before.
Yes.
I usually have pretty strong opinions about them, but I've kind of mellowed out a little bit, and I'm here for the fun and for the memes. And our first card seems like it might be for the memes, and that's Dustfallen Aviana, and it is a 5-mana 3/7. It doesn't have any card type, or it doesn't have any minion type, so it's just a generic 3/7 with the first card each player plays each turn costs 0, and it's legendary.
Or this is the Druid Legendary, right?
Yes, this is a Druid Legendary. And side note, real quick, I'm gonna take a sidestep real quick. I've gone ahead and sorted all of these cards in the show notes by class. So we're gonna go Druid, Hunter, Mage down the list and end at neutral, and they're all listed under each class, and they all have the links to the image. So if you want to follow along with us and not have to scroll through a page and try and find the card we're talking about, or Google it, then just go to our show notes and just click on the cards, and you'll be able to see what everything does and what we're talking about. So this card, the thing that pops out to me is the effect is super strong in your deck, and that's kind of why it has to be that's why it kind of has to work for each player, because it has to be bad somehow. And the thing I think of immediately is just Ultimate Infestation, the turn after you get to take your turn after you cast this. And the problem with this card, or the potential problem I see with this card, is because it's a symmetrical effect, your opponent gets the benefit from it first. And if your opponent's playing a deck with big spells in it, or big just cards in it, then it's going to be a lot worse for you than you playing this against aggro and then taking your turn, and then turn 6 play Ultimate Infestation plus something else. I think the card looks cool though. Not sure. The effect is very, very powerful when you get to use it, but the thing is how often are you going to get to use this before your opponent does something busted that just ends the game?
Or removes it.
Yeah.
Or because they get to use the effect, then potentially remove it, and then it's your turn. So I think I feel like that's the big problem.
I think worst case scenario is playing this on 5 against Priest, and then they go 0 mana Draconid Operative, Shadow Word Pain this, Cabal Talonpriest their Operative or something. And then you're oh my god.
Operative's rotating though, so that's handy.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah. It could be just replace play powerful 5-drop Shadow Word Pain this, or even against Warlock, they just play Siphon Soul on this and then play whatever they want for the turn. They
play Gul'dan.
yes, they use up a they use up a card to deal with this most likely. The stats are kind of interesting, but I think it gives too much power to your opponent. It's going to have to be this has to be used in a very specific deck, likely has to be a combo deck that if it survives for a turn, you just win the next turn is where I would see a card like this. So I'm thinking a Malagos type deck.
Yeah, I think I would see this card being played alongside Twig of the First Tree or World Tree. I don't remember the full name. Yeah, Twig of the World Tree. I think that kind of card is trying to do a similar thing to Dustfallen Aviana, but we'll have to see if benefit outweighs the cost of giving your opponent the effect first.
Yeah, the interaction here of not getting a discount the turn you play it is kind of a bummer. And I think really for this card to be relevant, your opponent's individual cards have to be largely not that good. And there are a couple decks where I can think of it. If you look at Dead Man's Hand Warrior, right? They don't have any impactful spells that they're just waiting on mana. Their limiting factor is time. And I think if you're against a deck where the limiting factor is time and their cards are not individually significant, then you might get some value here. But I think Midgame is right in that every deck right now seems to have a Death Knight or something big and scary like a Gul'dan. So it would have to be a very particular world where this effect is worth including in your deck, and it's just so hard to rely upon when the chances of just giving your opponent the new toy first, there's a really likely chance of them taking your toy too and running away with it.
It's a big reason why we were like pretty down on Forest Guide, because it kind of gives your opponent the advantage first. And obviously this is significantly different, but kind of a similar idea of you don't want to be giving the options to your opponent first.
I mean, you're giving your opponent somewhere between 1 to 10 mana for free on the turn that you play this. And so you have to be in a situation where them getting that mana means that they don't kill this and they don't kill you. And I think that's a world where it's difficult to see that being consistent.
Right.
It's a lot of talk about Dustfall and Aviana.
Yeah, next up we have the other Druid Legendary, which is Splintergraft, and it's an 8-mana 8/8 with Battle Cry. Choose a friendly minion, add a 10/10 copy to your hand that costs 10 mana. And I'm trying to brainstorm ways to abuse this ability, but
I kind of feel like it's basically just Zola the Gorgon that becomes a bigger threat, but also probably costs more as well. So if you would currently play Zola the Gorgon, then you would probably play this card as well, or instead, or kind of in the similar type of deck. And because there's no Druid deck like that at the moment, doesn't fit into any current archetype. That's my thoughts.
Yeah.
The only card, it's just another card where like I'm glad that they're rotating Molten Giant into the Hall of Fame. It's just like cards that feel like you would need a card like Molten Giant or something where you're doing something broken with it to, generate a whole bunch of power in a turn.
Oh, okay. Yep. Botticus did it. He found it. This does seem nuts and wild with Naga Sea Witch and Giants.
Yes.
Yuck.
Well, I mean, it just makes it's in 5 mana, you get an extra 10/10 Giant the following turn if there is a following turn, right?
Well, it would most likely be the same turn, right? You would do it where it would cost 10, but then it would be reduced, so you would try to do it the same turn.
Right, but you couldn't play this the same turn you played Witch.
Oh, yeah.
Unless you were playing Witch on turn 10.
Yes. In which case, your 5 turns too slow.
In which case?
In which case
Oh,
you
God.
would be too slow.
There are too many witches in this set. We're gonna have this pun happen too many times.
There's no such thing as too many times, Botticus. Make peace with it now. It's happening.
Speaking of witches, the next card is Witching Hour,
But
which
wait,
is a
I wasn't
druid
done.
spell.
I wasn't done.
Midgame said, this train's chugging along. Hop on board.
I'm all about it. I just want to point out, I think Splintergraft, first of all, there's some synergy there with Serenite Chain Gang, and there's a lot of synergy, I think, with Grizzled Guardian. If you play turn 8 Grizzled Guardian, turn 9 Splintergraft, turn 10 a 10/10 Grizzled Guardian, I think you're in a good spot. That's the 8 mana 3/5. When it dies, you recruit 2 4 or less minions. If that sticks, and then you copy it, and then you play it again, you're shutting down so many decks out of the game. It's really, really slow. But this whole set feels like Whispers 2, in that it's slow, grindy value cards that may become broken and synergistic later, but right now it's just, this is usually 8 mana 8/8, add a 10/10 for 10 to your hand. It's just a pile of stuff. And a lot of the cards we've seen, and a lot of how we're going to be evaluating what this format is shaping up to look like, is more incremental value-based and less synergistic. The format we're in right now is super synergistic, and all the decks feel really, really powerful. But I think if you go back to Whispers Standard, right when Whispers came out and Standard first existed, it was a slow format, and Azoth Paladin was the best deck for a while. And the only reason that got upended is because aggro shaman cards. And those aren't going to exist in the same way right now. So I think there's a really good chance that this is a incremental value format, at least to begin with. And this card kind of is the epitome of that. Okay, mid-game I'm done. Witching Hour.
Yeah, okay. Witching Hour is a 3 mana druid spell which says summon a random friendly beast that died this game. My thoughts on this is it would be much better if the 1/5 scarabs didn't have the beast tag. But apart from that, it seems like it could do some broken things, especially with the new big butted beast taunt thing.
Yeah. Appa had the card. It's called Witchwood Grizzly in the Druid section, but it is a neutral minion, which I think they were spoiled or they were revealed at the same time, right? The two cards. So I guess we could talk about this one at the same time, which it's a neutral minion called Witchwood Grizzly, 5 mana, 3/12 beast.
I
with
like
taunt.
big butts and I cannot lie.
And it says battle cry, lose 1 health for each card in your opponent's hand. I have mentioned this already a couple times to Hat, but this definitely seems like the the Hat set, because if we look at just the butts in Druid, there were 7, 8, 6, and 6, and those are not like it's not like they're super expensive cards, but just like if you're looking at just in general all the cards in this so far revealed in the set, most of them just have large butts.
Where is this bumper? I have a bumper.
How is it not the same bumper?
Oh, here. Not my fault. There we go. It's not my fault. And I'm not going to keep playing the big butts bumper, because if that train leaves that station as well, these trains are colliding. This is a crash course. So I got to make sure that I restrain myself from just hitting that button every single time we talk about a card. But yeah, it's this card is... It's important to note I misread this when I first saw it. I thought that the player lost a health and that it stayed a 5 mana 3/12. That is inaccurate. The minion gets a health debutt, where the butt reduces by 1 point for every card in your opponent's hand. So if your opponent has 10 cards, for example, this is a 5 mana 3/2 taunt. If your opponent has 5 cards, it's a 5 mana 3/7 taunt. You get the idea. And it's a permanent loss. You can't heal it.
It's like an inverse Twilight Drake.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you silence it, it becomes damaged for each health that it's lost, right? Is that how it works?
No, it
And then
removes
you
the
can
debuff.
Heal it up?
Removes the debuff. So when you silence it, it goes to 3/12.
Is that how it works?
Because you think about
I
when
feel
you
like
Dark
that's-
Conviction something, or like when you Shadow Essence an Obsidian statue, right? And then you
Right.
silence it, it becomes a 4/8.
Or have you ever Elder Peacekeeper something?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It
Interesting.
it changes
okay.
the I believe it
Right.
changes the stat, and so when you silence it, you unchange the stat. So it goes back to what it's supposed to
Got
be.
it. So what if it's damaged? How does that work?
I have no idea.
Does it gain it would, I guess, gain the loss back?
Typically, that's not how
I
the
don't know.
damage works. It's in my experience, the silence effect, it usually either reverts it all the way or it doesn't, and I can never keep track of which, and I just get mad because I've tried to consecrate multiple Murloc War Leaders before, and it always works out poorly back when they had the health buff. So I have no idea how this works now, but I'm sure there will be some science disguised toast interaction.
Probably.
I'm not
But-
a card scientist, so I don't know.
I have a feeling that if it has taken X amount of damage, then that just gets taken off the 12, because that's what happens once again when you silence like a Obsidian statue or something.
Yeah.
That is a 5/5.
Mid-game, thank goodness you're here.
I've played way
Mid-game's-
too much Big Priest.
Mid-game's like, I'm not a scientist, but...
Everyone!
Oh, that's the wrong bumper. We're editing that. This bumper.
Calm down! I'm a doctor!
There we go. Though I guess Midgame is a patron.
That's pretty. I'll pay that.
I love Botticus's just like.
I feel like I'm
Just
just
like-
being punished for missing the Whispering Wood pun last week.
Oh, yes. We're going to make up for that.
So how about from here on out we just each kind of take a class to read, and I'll
Okay.
just take Hunter to keep things rolling. Then we can kind of talk about which ones interest us the most. So the Hunter cards we have Duskhaven Hunter. It is a 3 mana 2/5 with stealth, and it has the I guess we can just call this like the Worgen effect, which is each turn this is in your hand, swap its attack and health, and Worgens in World of Warcraft being the werewolf peeps. So yeah, this is just one of those kind of cards. Next up, we have a spell called Dire Frenzy. It's 4 mana, and it says give a beast +3/+3. Shuffle 3 copies into your deck with +3/+3. So they keep the buff when they get shuffled into your deck. After that, we have a new Hunter Secret. It's an epic. It's 2 mana like all the other Hunter Secrets. It's called Rat Trap. And it says when your opponent plays 3 cards in 1 turn, summon a 6/6 rat. Then next up after that, we have Toxmonger. It's a 4 mana 2/4. Whenever you play a minion that costs 1, give it poisonous. And last up, we have Wing Blast. It's a 4 mana spell. It says deal 4 damage to a minion, but if a minion died this turn, this costs 1. So
the two which I find really interesting are Dire Frenzy and Wing Blast, because I feel like Dire Frenzy is like a slightly worse on the turn you play it Blessing of Kings that gives you value in the long game, once again suffering from Hunter not having any significant draw, which is always their big drawback. And then Wing Blast just being really, really super powerful if any sort of slower Hunter starts becoming a thing.
Yeah, I wanted to talk because I'm sure everyone has a lot to say about Wing Blast because that just seems like a fairly solid card. I've seen people talk about Dire Frenzy in not the best light, I guess. Most people don't seem to really like this card. I think I underestimated. I think people in general just underestimate how good buffing your creatures are just because of the initiative that you gain on being able to most of the time attack with the creature right away. And then if you're doing it on an efficient creature, it just means that you're more likely to draw very efficient creatures later in the game. I don't know that this is like a front runner for a very powerful card, but I do feel like there is some potential there. My biggest kind of draw from that is just that I did not think Unidentified Elixir was going to be good at all, and then I played a ton of it in Combo Priest, and people aren't playing it now, but I don't know if that's because they decided it wasn't good enough or they just haven't given it a shot like I have, because I feel like that card's good, so I could definitely see a card like Dire Frenzy being better than people might see at first glance.
I think that card looks fairly powerful. It is a slightly worse Blessing of Kings, but it also has extra text on it to make up with it, or to make up for that. Like, this is obviously best case scenario, but Dire Frenzying a Savannah Highmane is nice.
Oh, disgusting.
Ooh. Well, I mean,
and like those kind of plays are like an option. Like, just Dire Frenzying an efficient minion is like pretty solid. Like, it puts like pressure on the board like that turn. It also
Dire Frenzy, a hungry crab against Murloc Paladin. Feels good. Man.
Oh man, that's disgusting.
It fits into the mana curve pretty nicely for Hunter, where Hunter is clogged on 3-drops and very, very, very shallow on good 4-drops. So like, it's always in need of good 4-drops, and I think this could fit the bill. I would have to play with it, but just from looking at it and just like imagining, like running through virtual Hunter games in my head, it seems like it would probably be a good turn 4 play a lot of the time.
Dire Frenzy, a Huffer.
It's
yeah.
Well, yeah, it's always Huffer, and it's...
I have seen some memes on Reddit about Dire Frenzying Stone Tusk Spores with Telvir Warden and the new Legendary, just like making them real big.
Yeah, well, like, that's an option. Really, Dire Frenzy, you have to think about, for it to be better than Houndmaster, you have to draw one of the minions. So that means that this is meant for a deck that is going to draw one of the minions, because otherwise you just play Houndmaster, you get a 4/3 instead of an extra +1/+1, and you get the +2/+2 and taunt right away. But if you're going to draw a second one of these minions, it is almost certainly worth it to Dire Frenzy. So you just have to make sure you're in a situation where you're a Hunter deck that's going to take some time. And I think that Wing Blast is in the same space, because Wing Blast seems really tempting at first. But if you view this as trade in a minion and kill a taunt, That card is called Hunter's Mark. It already exists. You pay 1 mana for your Hunter's Mark, you trade in your 1/1, and the thing dies. So this means for a card that is efficient removal, that doesn't go face, that's dependent on minions dying, means you are playing a board-centric Hunter, not a face-centric Hunter. And Dire Frenzy is kind of speaking to the same thing. There's just a lot of cards that they're showing here that are value-based. And you look at Emerus from last week, the Hunter Legendary, this is value-based. So if you're going to be playing Wing Blast, you have to care about the board and not be able to attack into things and kill them. And that means you're not playing a face hunter, that this is not the card you pair with Unleash the Hounds unless you do so defensively. Because otherwise, Hunter's Mark does the same thing. So I do think there is a lot of opportunity here for it to be better than Hunter's Mark, but it's not going to be in a face aggro deck, and I think that's really the direction they're going in. The only trap here that I see is a literal trap, is Rat Trap, that people are talking about how frequently that card triggers, and I don't think it does as much as you think it does, Internet. I think this card does not trigger frequently.
I do think the other thing with Wing Blast, just quickly before we move on, is the fact that it's just when a minion dies. So it can be that you kill one of their minions with like a weapon or something, and then this is costing 1, which seems really good.
We also have the worst case scenario on Wing Blast, which is just like 4 mana, get something out of the way.
Yeah, which is fine.
And,
like that's a fine card.
And if the format has a bunch of like 4 toughness things, you might even just play this over Flanking Strike, or both in the same deck or whatever. But it has applications. It's neat. Rat Trap. I had like a example about Rat Trap to talk about. Well, not an example, but kind of a parallel. Dragon Soul is the priest weapon, and you have to cast 3 spells in a turn. And decks that are built around Dragon Soul don't always even cast 3 spells in a turn after they equip the weapon. And like that's a deck that's dedicated to doing that. So like I think Rat Trap like proccing frequently is kind of a fever dream.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Tic Tac said basically Rat Trap procs, and then your opponent does some disgusting thing to you and you lose the game on the turn that it procs.
Yeah, if I'm Rat Trapping and my opponent's like Auctioneer, prep Abyss, or prep Fan, coin, do some other stuff, I'm like, oh, the 6/6 just doesn't matter.
Well, the dream is you get the 6/6 when it's board efficient on turn 2 or 3, but that just doesn't happen that frequently. So your opponent has the coin and plays right into it, and even then, it gives a vanilla minion which have historically not been great against wide aggro decks. It's a 2-mana big vanilla minion, but it's a vanilla minion, and that means that you have to get to your turn and attack with it, and you're still taking damage from the other minions at the same time. For it to work, you have to be in a position where the minion matters and you are not under wide pressure. And I don't see that happening a lot. I think this card is tempting because the dream of the payoff is so high, but in reality, the likelihood of this triggering during a game is not even guaranteed, even if you have it up on turn 2.
Yeah, especially if your opponent does not have coin. I think the times where this triggers and your opponent it just is very, very rarely going to trigger unless your opponent has coin.
Who wants to take the mage card? We only have 1 mage card for this set of reveals, but it is a sweet one.
I can do the mage card. So the mage card is a 6 mana legendary minion called Toki Time Tinker. So 5/5 and has Battlecry, add a random legendary minion from the past into your hand, which basically means that it will add a wild exclusive legendary to your hand.
Yeah, there's kind of just the generic response to add random legendary to your hand, which is a lot of legendaries stink out loud. I think Spartacus Fett on Twitter made a spreadsheet with like the potential options you could get and like listed them from terrible to Hat is correcting me, Spartacus Fett and Rebobson. And I think the conclusion was about half of them are playable or above, but that also means about half of them are playable and below, which means about 50% of the time you're probably not happy with what this gives you. And a 6-mana 5/5 is not tempo efficient, so that's you're kind of going to be unhappy with that exchange if you get a mediocre legendary. But this is a card that kind of benefits you in the long game if you're playing against a slow, grindy deck. Like Hat says, this expansion is just riddled with value so far. So this kind of plays into that game where it just replaces itself and gives you the potential to upgrade itself. So it's an interesting card, but I'm kind of skeptical because of the fact that like half of the options you're going to get are not great.
Okay, so I don't have a lot to say about this card. I just want to know what everyone else thinks the absolute best card to get with Toki is.
Another
The
Toki.
best
Another Toki.
No, it's only
not wild
wild.
exclusive.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
wild exclusive.
So when it rotates to wild, another Toki. I love this card.
I think
not.
Brag or Sylvanas.
I don't know if this
So
card is playable, but I love it. I love it so much. I just want a Toki and Toki, another Toki.
I like the card too. I personally think the best one to get would be Thaurissan. Thaurissan, I think,
Ooh.
is my choice for the strongest wild legendary. But
How
could
far
be
back
wrong
can we
on that
go?
one.
Can I get 6 mana, draw 3, discard 3 Illidan? Can I get?
I know you wanted.
Can I get 4 mana Leroy?
Leroy.
4 mana Leroy.
I mean, I'd be very happy with Boom to curve into this, or curve this into, or
That's also quite
Ragnaros.
good. Yeah. But I think the other question I had is, if you're playing wild, are you getting a legendary minion from the past? So
I mean,
why
you
would you
can
be
live in the
getting wild
past. You
legendaries?
can live in the past.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. And Reno off of this will be Untrollden at some point soon. It's gonna happen. Someone's gonna
yeah,
Reno in standard.
If I bust this card in my packs, I'm putting this in Reno Mage, and I'm gonna get somebody with it.
Oh,
With
yeah.
2 Renos. Or like 4 Renos in that deck, because doesn't it play the
Echo.
the like mirror
Echo of
thing?
Medivh.
Echo of Medivh, yeah. Anyway, I don't think there's a whole lot more to say about that. We should probably keep moving. I'll talk about the Paladin cards, obviously. So the first Paladin card is that we had revealed is Cathedral Gargoyle. It is a 2-mana epic minion. Battle Cry. If you're holding a dragon, gain Taunt and Divine Shield. It is a 2/2. So unfortunately, the way I look at this card is that there is a very, very strong Paladin card called Call to Arms. I don't know if you all heard about it, but it's pretty good. And this card does not interact terribly well with Call to Arms. If Dragon Paladin becomes a thing, obviously this card is quite strong in that, but I fail to see a Paladin deck that does not run Call to Arms in the near future, so I doubt that this card sees a whole lot of play.
I think one of the big things is all of the control paladins who run Call to Arms run Dirty Rat, so they can get a 2/6 taunt off it. That is not something that you can get anymore because that's rotating.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
So Dragon Paladin, so far we don't have enough enablers. If you play this card on 2 and it triggers, it's obviously amazing, right? I don't think you can plan on that happening because that means you're probably playing Fairy Dragon and Nightmare Amalgam. You're probably playing Scalebane. You're probably playing Primordial Drake, and there's not too much else in Standard as far as playable dragons in Paladin, and we haven't seen any other Paladin dragons revealed. If it triggers, it's great, and if you Call to Arms and you just play 4 mana, make 3 2/2s, that's really good. That's a good card. Like, you're fine.
I'm going to follow up on this, and I've seen this argument that, or I guess not even argument, just like observation that Botticus put forward here, which is if you Call to Arms in it, it's not great. And I'm going to come with a counter for that, which is if you Call to Arms into this and 2 other minions, you don't care that it's a 2/2. You have just cast Call to Arms, and it's pulled out a 2 mana 2/2 from your deck, plus 2 other probably reasonable cards, and that's just fine. And
Yeah,
like
but
if I'm playing
okay.
like a deck with this in it and Call to Arms, and like this is my low roll, fine, that's good. I don't care.
Okay, so like that's a fine argument, but which call to arms decks right now are playing cards that are just kind of vanilla? Like, yes, the Murloc Paladin deck has Hydrologist, but that also synergizes with the rest of their Murlocs, and a lot of the Paladin decks are actually cutting Hydrologist because it was just the worst Murloc and it sucked to get off of call to arms. Like the call to arms decks are strong because they synergize really well with each other, and if you get this card off of a call to arms, then it's not going to be generally synergizing with the rest of your deck. And the reason why the Dirty Rat call to arms decks are so good is because you're getting an insane amount of stats, which this is not giving you any bonus stats from it, or it's getting you value, or it's getting you, X, Y, and Z. Like, yes, I see what you're saying, that if you get any 3 cards with call to arms, it's good. But I'm just saying that, we'll have to see a lot more Dragons Matter stuff in specifically Paladin, I feel like, to make this card feel like a worthy inclusion. Obviously, as Hat keeps saying, context, 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 but like, I want the reason for my 1s and 2 drops to be in the deck, because when I pull them, I'm really happy to pull them with Call to Arms. But
Remember,
that's just kind of my take.
we haven't seen a CTA format where there's a low average power level. We've only seen a CTA format in 6 set standard and wild. So remember that
Right.
if we operate under the theory, which right now we seem to be pointing, and again, it's only a theory, that the context of this environment is going to be incremental value and slower, more valuable butt-based synergies, or rather lack of synergy, just butts. I think that a world where a 2-mana 2/2 with Divine Shield and Taunt is pretty powerful, and I don't expect this to proc that often. I think it's pretty high variance, and I think that if we're also in an incremental value format, holding off a 2-mana 2/2 with Taunt and Divine Shield is doable. I don't foresee it wrecking the format the same way that it did when it was followed up by Muster for Battle into Pilot Shredder into Sludge Belcher. So I'm not offended by this card, but I think that if we're entering a world where we're just talking about value, it is a target and a deck thinning tool for the most value intensive, tempo intensive card Paladin has right now.
Right. So let's go on to the next one. When we're talking about incremental value, I kind of like this next one that was revealed. It's called Silver Sword. It is an 8-mana paladin weapon, 3/4, and it says after your hero attacks, give your minions +1/+1. The most analogous card to this would be Vine Cleaver. I do like the idea of making 2 1/1s slightly more than giving your minions +1/+1, but overall, I mean, having an extra durability over an extra attack is significantly better, I think. And if I've learned anything from Vine Cleaver, it's that being able to attack the first turn, maybe not get a whole lot of value that turn, but then spend all your mana and then get your value the next turn. I could definitely see this being pretty reasonable, but I don't know if it finds room with Vine Cleaver still in the format. What do you think about this card mid-game?
I think pretty similar to you. I think one of the big reasons that Vine Cleaver is played is because it actually gives you board presence, whereas this one itself doesn't. And so I kind of think that while Vine Cleaver is still there, you just play that over this. I also think that the +1 attack is probably pretty relevant when you're talking about, turn 7, turn 8. So yeah, I agree with you.
Anybody else have anything to say about the Silver Sword?
Anything I say about it will probably end up being wrong in like a few weeks when we start playing with it. I don't know. It has a powerful effect for sure. But it like competes in the 8-mana spot with Tyriad, which in a deck where you're going wide, you could definitely make an argument for playing this over Tyrion, at least in terms of just your curve. The other thing I see with it that kind of makes me a little iffy of it is the 3 attack. I think Vine Cleaver is definitely significantly better, partially because it does have 4 attack and can trade into minions more efficiently, whereas this obviously has a tough time clearing 4 attack or 4 health minions.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't know.
more like trying to get more procs out of it, right? Since it has the 4 durability instead of 3.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to play with this one to make any judgments about it, really. Those are just kind of the observations I have just on first glance.
Yeah, it's hard to think about expensive weapons when you have like Uther has a big weapon and Tyrion has a big weapon, and then this is another big weapon. It's hard to kind of balance all of those, whereas like you really want this in play for all 4 swings most of the time. But we have one more Paladin card that was just revealed. It's called Bellringer Sentry. It is a 4 mana 3/4 minion with Battle Cry and Death Rattle. Put a secret from your deck onto the battlefield. Just seeing this, this looks quite strong to me. I'm trying to think of like what secrets you put in your deck. I mean, it's like kind of a mix. It feels like almost a mix to me between like halfway in between Hydrologist and oh man, why can't I think about it?
Mysterious Challenger?
Yes, obviously. Mysterious Challenger. That's the one. I don't know. I gotta kind of think about this. Who here has played the most with Mysterious Challenger, do you think?
Probably me. I played quite a bit with it.
So what do you think of this card?
This definitely is no Mysterious Challenger, but that one's obvious.
Yes.
This I don't know. Like, God, I'm probably gonna end up. This is probably gonna be my call to arms of this, this expansion. I see where the value of this card can go, or like how good it can be. The problem is with this, like you need to put, if we're talking about just in standard moving forward, and obviously this is another thing where context is very important and we don't have the full context of the set, but with the secrets that exist right now, I don't think you're happy drawing them when you don't get them from this card, if that makes sense. Like if you draw a Kodo or something and you haven't drawn this card yet, like you don't get the Kodo off of this, I think you're not that happy with it. Like it's not obviously not the end of the world, but I think that's kind of a strike against it. But I think this card is dope in Wild, in Secret Paladin. You just stick it in there at 4 and you're like, man, this is awesome.
And not having Avenge
I feel like
seems pretty important, right? Like Avenge is a very powerful, or
Yeah,
it seems like one of the more
Avenge-
powerful Paladin
Avenge
secrets.
was one of the draws to playing Secret Paladin. Whenever Avenge rotated out, people still experimented with Secret Paladin, but it was far less good. Like 1 mana +3/+2 to something is nuts.
I feel like one of the other big losses here is that you don't get all the secrets at once. They come separately. You know, you get one from the start and one from the end. Whereas one of the big things about Mysterious Challenger was that it brought them all at once. And I feel like that's a huge loss, especially as you are only getting 2 of them. So you're far more likely to just draw them as a natural card rather than get them off this. So I think that's a big drawback and just doesn't make it worth running the secrets themselves.
Yeah, because you're not going to jam like all the secrets in your deck because the payoff isn't as big. Like as Mysterious Challenger, with that you just like shove 9 secrets in your deck and you're like, okay, cool. We're just gonna, like, even if we draw them, we're just gonna hit them the Challenger, gonna win the game because our opponent can't deal with the accrued value we've gotten. But this is like, so we have like Noble Sack and Kodo in our deck or something. We like play this.
Kodo
pulls out a
rotates.
Noble Sack.
You don't have Kodo.
Yeah,
Kodo's
Oh,
gone.
we don't. Oh,
yeah,
oh
that
my
also
gosh,
makes
that
it
is-
so.
that is
I
Mean
think
Streets. Wow.
Yeah, I feel like they will have to reveal a pretty powerful Paladin secret.
Yeah, so like with the context we have right now, as of the recording of this, say we like have Noble Sacks in our deck, and we play this, get a Noble Sack. Our opponent can just like test for the Noble Sack usually without like expending too many resources or like doing anything too inefficient. And then after that, we have a 3/4 that might pull us another Noble Sack or like a Redemption or something. Like that's not that powerful. I don't know. I do think the Paladin Secret is going to have to be pretty good for this to see standard play, at least.
It feels like if we're talking about the context that Ridiculous Hat keeps bringing up of incremental value, this is a good incremental value card, but it forces you to put some less value-y cards most likely into your deck as far as we know at the moment.
I mean,
Yeah.
this is 2 Mad Scientists. You pay full price for 2 Mad Scientists. You get a power reduction of 1 because you're taping them together and they share an arm or something. But it's Paladin didn't play Mad Scientist because getting 1 mana secrets wasn't that powerful. And Mysterious Challenger was all about consistent effects. You get the same thing every time. You get all these secrets at once, and it was the tempo play topping off a curve made of entirely designed mistakes. Right? It was entirely just like mistakes that Blizzard had made by printing cards like a Secret Keeper into Knife Juggler when it was a 3/2 or Shielded Minibot, into Muster, into Shredder, into Belcher, into Mysterious Challenger. And the curve in Wild now is different design mistakes, but similar in terms of context. That being said, 2 Mad Scientists, pretty good. It's a different deck than we have right now. I'm prepared to lose to this card in Standard, because pulling 2 cards out of your deck and paying full price for them is too powerful for me to ignore, and I will be brewing with this card. There's something here, and I think the fact that we're all like trying to figure out where it is, but we all have the same kind of there's something here reaction, and we're all going in different directions with it, shows that I think that even with the secrets we have now, the value might be worth including just for deck thinning. And 4 mana 3/4, you get a Noble Sack when it comes in, a Noble Sack when it comes out. In a tempo-based format, that's fine. Like, that's real good in aggro mirrors. So, I don't know. I think there's something there. I don't think it's broken, because I'm not ready to do Sky is Falling before we get to stand under it. But there's something here, and I'm really intrigued.
I think it definitely has potential. I think I'm siding more on the skeptical side of this card at first.
Yeah, I think it just takes like a good Paladin secret to have this go from a card we're not super excited about to a card we're very excited about.
All right, well, I'm going to let Hat do Priest, because I know he wants to talk about 1 and or more of these cards.
Sorry, just gearing up mentally to do Priest. Just thinking about it. Okay, so here's the thing about Priest, is that it's got some of the funkiest cards of the expansion. We're going to start off with the actual funkiest card of the expansion, Chameleos. 1 mana, 1/1 legendary, Priest. It's a beast. Each turn this is in your hand, transform it into a card your opponent is holding. It's the same language as Shifter Xeris. The turn you draw it, it is a 1 mana, 1/1. It does not transform. It transforms each turn to a copy of a card your opponent is holding. This card is actually impossible to evaluate. I think it's really, really cool. It's interesting design. It's the first time Blizzard has a repeating hand analysis effect. They've had hand disruption with, we have Dirty Rats, Gnome Feratu is deck disruption. You've got Thoughtsteal and Devour Mind to steal cards from opponents' decks. King Togwaggle, I suppose. But this is the first time that we've seen repeat hand analysis. The best players in the game win games because of their ability to do this without the card, but I wonder if knowing for sure with this card will change things enough that it's worth the slot in your deck, and or the ability to copy something late game, because it is much more likely to see a card your opponent is holding for a long time. And if they're holding something for a long time, there's a good chance it's powerful, like it's a big old Death Knight. And it's still an RNG chance, but if they got a Gul'dan in their hand and you steal it on turn 10, well, copy it. Still probably pretty decent. So, I don't know. This card has had some of the most spirited discussion I've heard anywhere in the latter midgame. What do you think about this? Please be alive midgame.
Sorry, I was muted and trying to talk, and my phone had locked itself. Partially because Blister Guy's here.
Oh, Blister Guy.
Wait, for real?
Yeah, Blister Guy is sitting next to me at the moment. But
It's not true. Fake news.
But only one of my headphones is working, so he can't hear what you're saying, only what I'm saying. My thoughts on Chameleos are, at the moment, Priest really doesn't have that much to combat aggro, and this card is really good against control, but if it just dies to aggro, then it's a bad card.
I don't even expect you to say I mean, control.
And Blister Guy said he doesn't
surprise.
think it's that good against control.
What a surprise. Blister Guy shows up and we hear sirens all of a sudden. I feel like...
Yeah, there's cops coming towards us. Blister Guy's called them all over.
Yeah, so like last time he was on the podcast, all of a sudden random sirens went off randomly. I thought it was, maybe something bad was happening around him. Maybe he just brings bad luck around him.
But he's just saying he's an illegal immigrant. That's the problem.
I'm gonna say this about Chameleos. It's cool. And that's it. Because I'm not gonna say something and sound stupid later on. It's cool. I can't evaluate it. It's a neat card.
The one thing I have to say about Chameleos
on the card is that...
Oh yeah, right. Okay. So information is really good, right? Information is great. But is it worth a card in your hand? Not really. I don't think it is at all. It doesn't help you against aggro. Against control, it's cute and it's interesting, but I think we're well past being cute and interesting in control on control matchups these days. There you go.
Yeah, I somewhat agree with Blister Guy, but the one thing I did want to say about this card is I love the flavor. I've been looking for Hearthstone to do more flavor-based cards, and because that was something I really kind of liked in Magic the Gathering, is how they were able to really encapsulate kind of what a card is, and the fact that this is a chameleon and it can kind of change itself to be different things, I think is just an awesome way to capture it. And there's just a lot in this set that is really good at capturing flavor, and I love it. I love kind of having that be part of it.
I think we have had good discussion on this. Now let's talk about a card that is much less controversial. Holy Water. 5 mana 4/4 priest spell. It's a rare. Deal 4 damage to a minion. If that kills it, add a copy of it to your hand. The it, by the way, is the minion, not a copy of this card, which is how I read it at first. It's getting a converted copy of an opponent's minion just seems really, really slow to me, especially for 5 mana single target removal that doesn't heal you. I don't know. I have trouble seeing that this is a card worth spending a lot of time on. Moving on.
I agree. Let's go to the next one.
The next one is Lady in White. 6 mana 5/5 priest legendary. Battle cry. Cast Inner Fire on every minion in your deck. Yes, that is what the card says. Set attack equal to health. This is a...
Can we all agree to call this card Inner 5?
Yes. But it costs 6.
Dang
it. So no.
So close.
But it's really, really cool. And I think if you use this card, if you're a priest deck, you care about the board, you have a lot of minions with big butts, and you need to win with them. That's why you play it. It's a long-term value card. Otherwise, this card has been compared to the Mistcaller. I think that's not an unreasonable comparison. It obviously lives in a different world, and Priest is definitely better at dealing with aggro, and definitely better at playing a lot of big butt minions and stalling the game than most Shaman decks ever were with the Mistcaller. But you do need the game to go long, and you do need to make sure that you're in a situation where the attack buff has to matter. Because if you're going to win with 3/8s anyways, you don't need them to be 8/8s.
Yeah, this card feels quite slow to me if you're looking at like an Inner Fire combo priest deck. It feels definitely more like a card you put in a control priest deck that already can make use of minions with big butts, and it just kind of improves the overall quality of the creatures that are in your deck when you play it. Doesn't seem like a card that would go in the combo version of the deck to me.
Blister and I both think that Mistcaller is a good comparison, and it is certainly better than Mistcaller, but Mistcaller wasn't even close to being played, so neither is this.
All right, let's get into Rogue. Do you want to take... who do we want to have take Rogue?
You.
Okay. So, cards revealed since the last time we spoke. Cursed Castaway. It is a 6 mana 5/3 pirate with Rush and Death Rattle. Draw a combo card from your deck. I guess we're going over all the cards quickly, and we'll talk about ones that we like. So we'll go over the next one. It is Mist Wraith. It is a 4 mana 3/5 minion. Whenever you play an Echo card, gain +1/+1. And then Pickpocket, which is a 2 mana spell with Echo, and add a random card to your hand from your opponent's class. And Spectral Cutlass is a 4-mana 2/2 weapon with lifesteal, and whenever you play a card from another class, gain 1 durability. So the last 3 cards kind of all had like kind of a little synergy thing going on, but wasn't that interesting to me. I really like the card Cursed Castaway though. The idea of like Rush and Death Rattle, I'm actually kind of glad the N'Zoth is going away, because I feel like there could be something there with like, Death Rattle cards and Rush and N'Zoth all feel like they could have done some pretty crazy things together. But all in all, like the card's slow, but drawing specific cards out of your deck we've shown to be quite powerful. And they've kind of thought about doing like a Death Rattle rogue thing. We have the Spellstone that cares about Death Rattle. Maybe we figure out something along those lines. Maybe there's some sort of like mid-rangey rogue, or something that can come out of this. You're kind of like value based, but also mid-rangey. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think there's a
card?
chance that this fits into something like the Vilespine slot in a tempo-ish rogue type deck, because it, in a sense, will be played, kill a minion, but then draw you a card. Seems kind of cool. Similar sort of slot if you kind of want 3 Vilespines, you might play one of these as well, or 1 Vilespine, 2 of these. I think that's kind of the slot that it fits into, but I don't know if there's a spot for it.
What do you think, Hat? Any of these cards stand out to you?
Rogue is going in a weird direction, and I've been thinking about it since Face Collector came out and was announced. And you look at the way that Blizzard is looking at designing the cards, and they've always talked about how Rogue's class identity was kind of outsmarting other people, was kind of being really clever. A lot of these cards don't feel quite as clever. They feel a little bit more obvious, a little bit more beat you over the head with Echo and Burgle, and it's very clear that the class identity is going to be tied up in Echo because, Rogue kind of does that. With Valera, they tested the waters a little bit. It's... Face Collector is the one that I think I am still curious about and interested in, but the direction Rogue is going and reminds me of Shadowcaster Rogue and not of Miracle Rogue, and I don't know what to think about that, because Value Rogue has never consistently been successful. I'm prepared for that to change, but so far we haven't really seen too many cards that play to non-value Rogue, that play to tempo-based Rogue, and so maybe that archetype is just going to take a minute off.
Cool. Do you have anything, Appa, or do you want to go into Shaman?
That y'all pretty much covered it. The only thing I wanted to bring up was that the Cursed Castaway was like a 2-for-1 card, but Midgame covered that pretty well. So let's move on to Shaman. And Shaman only got 1 reveal, and that was Pathra's reveal, actually. It's a 7-mana 4/8 elemental. It's an epic, and whenever you cast a spell, draw a minion from your deck. It's really slow. It's really powerful in terms of its effect, and it needs some like early game support to go along with it. It needs to go in a grindy Shaman shell, and it needs for you to not be dead by turn 7. You need to be like turn 7 and beyond. This probably won't even be a turn 7 play, because just playing this on curve is pretty inefficient and probably puts you kind of behind on board. So you need like ways to kind of abuse this effect. And the things I can think of are like turn 10 is like this and Lightning Storm, or what's the 2-mana 1/1 elemental Thorasand card?
That's the I know what you're talking about. Harbinger.
Fireplume
Fireplume Harbinger.
Yeah, Fireplume Harbinger. Make this cheaper with like Murmuring Elemental and stuff. Like, could be in kind of a ambitious elemental shaman shell like that. But those are basically my ideas for that card as of right now. Other than that, I'd have to see more support from the upcoming set, because Shaman has like some gimmicky cards, but other than that, it doesn't have anything like too serious that goes along with this in terms of support.
See, clearly, you got to think of all the random shaman spells you're going to be getting with Hagatha and Witch's Apprentice. So you're going to be getting these bad 0 mana shaman spells, and then you just combo them with the Bog Shaper, and your Totems Matters cards just become more creatures, and your creatures become spells, which become more creatures and spells and creatures
If
and
I'm
spells.
playing Witch's Apprentice in a deck, I think I have bigger problems. Witch's Apprentice is the stupid little frog, right?
Yeah.
You don't call him stupid.
Yeah.
What did he do to you? He has a hat. Be nice.
He took up a shaman slot in the new expansion.
He has
That's
a
what he
hat.
did to me.
Be nice.
He does that.
I
He
have
does
2
that
mana
to you
Echo
all now.
Burgle. You got a frog with a hat. Be nice.
Yours actually generates card advantage, though. Mine's
Yours
just
generates
a
frog
little bit
advantage.
Oh my gosh. All right, let's move on to Warlock before Hat gets more aggressive.
Mid-game, can you cover the Warlock stuff, or because you're on mobile, can you not see
I
them?
can. No,
Okay.
I can. I also know all 3 of these cards anyway. So
All right, do it.
the first Warlock card is Blood Witch, which is a 4 mana 3/6. At the start of your turn, deal 1 damage to your hero. The second one is Deathweb Spider, which is a 5 mana 4/6 minion, which is Battlecry. If your hero took damage this turn, gain lifesteal. It is also a beast. And then the last one is Duskbat, which is a 3 mana 2/4 beast Battlecry. If your hero took damage this turn, summon 2 1/1 bats. I quite like all 3 of these cards, to be honest. I think that they could all get close to being played in Warlock archetypes. I think that the lifesteal one is kind of cool for slower type Warlocks. I'm not sure if it sees play over things like the Spellstone, but with Mistress gone, perhaps like that little bit of extra healing is needed, and this is a reasonably significant body. And then Duskbat is obviously pretty cool for Zoo. Whether or not you can kind of proc it early enough for it to be significant, I don't know. But I think it could be good. Yeah, that's my thoughts. What does everyone else think?
The thing I wanted to say about these is, aside from having Blood Witch out, you can't play these like just for their mana cost. You have to have an enabler with them. Like, you can't just run out Dustbat on 3. You have to have like a Flame Imp or a Kobold Librarian plus Dustbat. So they're virtually 1 more mana expensive than you actually read them as, unless you have Blood Witch out. So I think that's kind of a strike against them, but their effects are powerful. Like the Deathweb Spider looks like a solid card. Dustbat a little less so, because we have had the the one from Knights of the Frozen Throne. It does like the same thing, but it brings skeletons.
For one more.
Yeah, Grim Necromancer.
Yeah, Grim Necromancer. That's kind of how I view Dustbat. But if we see more cards that let you deal damage to yourself kind of for free, then I think they get a little bit better. But that's just my kind of hesitance with these cards as of right now.
I don't know. I like the stat line on Blood Witch. Like 4 mana 3/6 with the small downside of getting a damage every turn. If it survives to your turn, seems fine to me. It's just a matter of, and then I mean, Dustbat, if you are able to reliably get the proc, it's could be pretty good. I feel like Zoo even played that card, the Grim Necromancer, or was it? It must have been a different deck, actually.
It did at times, but I also think that one of the big differences is this is in a lot less powerful of a set. And Zoo has, now a lot more slots which would go to less powerful cards, so I think that's what makes it a little bit better. I forgot about Grim Necromancer a lot, so I do kind of agree with Appa that it's maybe not quite good enough, especially because it needs the damage to the hero.
Right. So if we don't have anything else, let's go on to Warrior. Who hasn't gone recently?
I'll do Warrior.
You do it.
So Warrior has 3 cards so far, and they are interesting. In fact, this legendary is maybe one of the weirdest cards I've ever seen. Black Howl Gunspire. It is a 7 mana 3/8 warrior legendary. It can't attack. Whenever it takes damage, you deal 3 damage to a random enemy. So when this gets hit, it kind of like it's like it fires off a rag shot equal to its power up to 8 times, but whirlwinds up to 8 times, but it can't attack and it has no taunt, and it's super weird. We've got Deadly Arsenal, which is a 6-mana epic spell. Reveal a weapon from your deck, deal its attack to all minions. And then speaking of weapons, this axe is not fiery and it's not for war, but it is a 2-mana axe. It's Woodcutter's Axe. It's a common. It's a 2-mana 2/2 weapon. Death Rattle, give a random friendly minion with Rush +2/+1. I have no idea what to think of the Gunspire. The card is a meme dream, and I'm certain that Danehearth will play something with it, and it will wind up on Trollden. I see no competitive applications at this time because it's a goofy card, but there might be some wombo combo out there with it. Woodcutter's Axe, I think, is really good. I think it's a really, really good card.
Yeah, I'm just gonna gloss over the last two a little bit. Like Deadly Arsenal, Woodcutter's Axe are already getting like a significant amount of discussion because the power level does look fairly high on both of them. But I did want to kind of refer back to what Botticus said about flavor in cards, which is, I think it's something that Hearthstone's been lacking, that this set, I mean, with Black Howl, Gunspire, and Chameleos, they're kind of knocking out of the park with those two cards. Which, like, I mean, I'm a spiky player, which means that like I like playing in tournaments. I like winning games, but I also do appreciate flavor. And whenever they can kind of work that in a set, I appreciate that a lot. Which the can't attack on the Black Howl card, and the Chameleos changing every turn to something else. Like I like those cards a lot, even if they won't see play, and I appreciate that.
So the dream with Gunspire is something involving the warrior legendary weapon, right? You attack with the warrior legendary weapon, get this out, and then you attack again and get a rot face out, and then play Warpath a bunch of times. And that's like the dream. My biggest problem with the Gunspire is that like you kind of want to whirlwind a bunch of times, but most likely you want like those whirlwinds to be killing your opponent's stuff. But then like this is also sometimes randomly going off and killing their stuff, where the Warpath 1 damage was supposed to finish them off eventually.
It sounds like you just want your opponent to cast a file. This is on the board.
Exactly.
Yo, that would be great. Like, listen, it is so I was trying to think of like Reverse Treachery, but that card's called Mind Control, and it costs 10, and it's not a Warlock card. But if there was a way to like take the tower or copy it and then you play Defile, that would be super cool. Like I just envision.
So it sounds like you want to play Q-Block with Faceless in your deck and Defile.
Oh man, Q-Block might be good post rotation. Now that this card exists.
It loses like 3 cards, and you get to copy the Black Hole.
I just have this dream that I can't stop thinking about, where I know this card is probably not going to be a competitive foundation pillar of the format, but I have this dream of just somehow setting up this whirlwind wombo combo where this thing is just shooting off shots left and right, and I just want it to happen so bad. I want it to happen.
I'm ready to see the animation on this.
Yes. Repeatedly,
And
8 times in a
Woodcutter.
turn.
Yeah, Woodcutter's Axes seems very good, especially if you're able to include like Darius Crowley and 2 other like fairly solid rush cards. I don't know that the ones already revealed are them, but like being able to get the value makes that card super good, and even not getting the value is like it seems still really solid.
In Wild, on a clean board, actually not even in Wild, in Wild, in a clean board, you can just go Gun Tower, Bouncing Blade, take 24.
There you go.
Right, that's just 10 mana, you take 24 damage right now. And then if you have Thaurissan, you can Whirlwind and Rampage first, and then that's a lot of damage.
Well, can't you like Whirlwind and then make a copy of this with the card that copies your damaged minions, and then Bouncing Blade?
Do minions take damage when they're commanding shouted?
Yes, but they don't die.
Yes.
Appa. Appa. Did you break the game? Like, not like, did you find an overpowered combo?
Thaurissan, and then I thought about
they don't take damage once they're on 1 health.
You don't?
So if
No.
it goes down to 1 health, it doesn't keep taking damage. Like if you have an acolyte on board, then you're commanding shout, and then you keep whirlwinding or have a pyro or something. It'll only take damage until it's on 1, and then it will stop taking damage.
Unlucky. I
Sorry
didn't play
for
enough
ruining
of-
your dreams.
I didn't play enough of the Worgen OTK deck to know that interaction. But yeah, I
Man.
think we can move on to neutral
Yep.
pretty,
Yes.
pretty safely. First one I think is the most interesting one. It's neutral legendary. It's 5 mana 2/6 and says whenever you draw a minion, summon a 1/1 copy of this. And the closest parallel I have to this is Barnes. They're not the same, but this card is very unique. So that's kind of the parallel I'm drawing to. And so this one kind of spooks me out because I don't want to get high rolled by this one. I can't kill it.
I mean,
It does feel like a turn 8 or 9 like combo though, whereas Barnes was a turn 3 on coin combo.
Yeah.
Barnes
So,
was a deck building
hopefully
challenge.
yeah.
This is more like a construction of like a scenario challenge. Because you have to have minions in your deck that have value when you draw them. You have to draw them when you have a 5 mana 2/6 in play. I mean, the world I want to live in is where I go turn 5, Dollmaster Dorian, prep, roll the bones, and high roll like crazy, and get a few death rattle and just spit them onto the board. But that's not realistic. Internet, if you're listening to me, I know it's not realistic, but I want it. I want it so bad.
Especially as Firebat tried to make Roller Bones work, and it just doesn't, even if your deck is like more than half Roller Bones.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have 2 roll the bones, 2 preps, 1 Dollmaster Dorian, and the rest are all death rattles. And even then, like, it's gonna stop eventually. But it's not realistic. But I want it to happen. But Dollmaster Dorian, I mean, free 1/1 copies of things are known to be good. So all you have to do is set up a world where you make that happen somehow by keeping this card in the board, and then you're probably set up for a good place. This is the second most scary card in the set, in my opinion. The first being
Yeah, I
Vivid
mean,
Nightmare.
The one that I've seen the most is Dollmaster Dorian Sense Demons drawing Void Lords, or extra Doom Guards that you
Ugh.
can cube and
That's
stuff
gross,
like that.
and you made me want to throw up.
Why does it always come back to Warlock? Can't Shaman get something nice? Can't we ice
No.
fishing and get
No,
some
we can't.
Murlocs?
No, we can't get anything nice. In fact, we get our things that are nice taken away from us. Rip Hex.
But at least you get
Anyways,
to keep the frog.
Yeah, with a sweet hat.
I'm gonna move on to the other neutral cards, and I'm gonna
Do it.
group these next 3 together because they have what I'm dubbing the Worgen effect, which is each turn this is in your hand, swap its attack and health. First one is 8 mana 3/8 with Divine Shield and Rush. The next one is a 2 mana 1/4 with spell damage +1, and the third is 4 mana 2/6 with Rush. And all of them have the effect each turn this is in your hand, swap its attack and health. So I think they're all pretty straightforward. I think the one that I think probably has the most like competitive implications is probably Gilnean Royal Guard, because I'm kind of likening it to Argent Commander, which is the 6 mana 4/2 Divine Shield charge, which usually traded into a minion and then hit your opponent in the face the next turn. And this is kind of what I see happening with that. But it is 8 mana, and you do have to be able to play it probably for its 8/3 side to get a lot of value out of it. But yeah, that's the one I see probably being the closest to being playable.
Man,
Out
it
of-
sucks
out of
that
those.
it sucks that it's a 3/8, because otherwise you could pull it with the 7 mana 3/3 that Death Rattles pulls an 8-drop from your deck, and then you could rush in, get him.
Get them. Anyways, moving on to the last 2 cards, actually. This one is called Witch's Cauldron. It's a 3 mana 0/4, and after a friendly minion dies, add a random shaman spell to your hand. They just like to rub salt in the wound.
Why is it a neutral card?
I don't know.
It adds shaman spells, but it's a neutral card. I don't.
Well,
get it.
she's a shaman, but it's just her pot, just her cauldron.
That's actually fair. That's Anyways,
So, if you
um,
play this with Unleash the Hounds, is it better or worse than Cult Master?
Worse.
much worse.
Because
By
Cult
a
Master
lot.
is a 4-2.
And also gives
4-2
you
is
things that you
bigger.
want to draw,
But it costs
like
more
not
mana.
shaman spells and things you put in your deck.
But imagine if Hunter got, like, Lightning Storm and healing spells.
So this is our Control Hunter deck with 2 Witches Cauldrons and Unleash the Hounds and Tracking, but it's not Spell Hunter, so...
So this isn't there specifically for Unleash.
I mean, I don't know. Like, Hunter's been so consistent for so long, and then Spell Hunter came out, but I'm still not done. I want to witch it up.
All right.
The
Well, this last card is, like, decent, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a 3-mana 1/1 battle cry. Choose a minion. Death rattle. Destroy the chosen minion. The combo I've seen with this is the 1-mana 1/3 warrior card. Forget the name of it, but it deals 1 damage to a minion when it enters the battlefield.
Oh, it's Animated Berserker.
Yeah, so that's a combo with this. If you have animated berserker on the board, this is just 3 mana destroy a thing, which is nice. This is gonna rely on how heavy we see silences.
Yeah, I mean,
I feel like this could be really, really cool in something like Odd Mage, where it allows you to kind of kill something, then ping it off, and possibly get a water elemental out of it. I don't know
goodness.
if it is actually good enough, but I think it could be a really cool combo.
I'm sweating over here.
it's what, big spell, odd Jaina Hunter? Yeah.
No,
But, like, but you think about this card with Mortal Coil. You think about this card with Dark Pact, with Defile. Really, really powerful with all of those. Powerful in Mage, period. And it's if it is not silenced in a format that already has a lot of silence targets, it is a premium removal. Is 3 mana, wait a turn, kill a thing. Like, no questions asked, the thing dies. So, it's not, 3 mana, wait a turn, kill a thing by itself is not always good enough, but because of how the format is under a lot of burden from silences, now that means there's a lot of silence effects to go around, but if they're silencing this, they don't have it for whatever else you're playing. And if you're able to kill this the turn it comes out, Mortal Coil is a super good combo here. That's just 4 mana, kill a thing, draw a card. Or cycle a card. It's
Dark Pact.
Dark
Gain
Pact,
life.
obviously really good. Defile is a Defile activator and kills an extra big thing on top of killing all the other things. I foresee Voodoo Doll seeing a lot of play. I think the effect is really powerful, unconditional, except for the condition that you sometimes have to wait a turn. And I just foresee it being really influential in the format.
Unconditional, conditional removal.
Well, like, there's a condition. Shut up.
Got him.
All right, that's a lot. We've gotten to the part where Hat's saying to shut up. Sounds like a good time to go to the outro. That's enough new cards for the show.
How long
I've been told
can
to shut
this
up.
go on?
Been told to shut up. Time to end the show.
Yeah, you're not the boss of me. Sometimes you are. Appa sometimes gets me, and I just have to sit here and just lick my wounds for a minute. But the best way to lick my wounds is while reading the outro. So let me get to that. Thanks to Stefan L. for letting us use his cover. You can find it in our show notes. We actually got a tweet about this. Definitely check him out. Stefan L. is a musician that let us use his cover. You should check out his music. If you like guitar, he's really good at it. So definitely check it out. He's a good dude. Big thanks to Hearthstone Top Decks, beerbrick.com for Decklists, Hearthstone tournaments on YouTube with a lowercase t, Old Guardian for his tournament write-ups, and Hearthpone for their tournament survival guides, and I think it's ASHRAM on Twitter. He has a lot of tournament statistics. I've been leaning on those a lot, so definitely check all those out. Our show notes are on our website, CoinConcede.com. You can monetarily support our show at Patreon.com/CoinConcede. Join us every week live by being on Twitch.tv/CoinConcede podcast. Join our community chats in our Discord at Discord.CoinConcede.com. Write into our email at CoinConcede@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at CoinConcede. Share, follow us on Facebook at Facebook.com/CoinConcede. If you'd like some CC swag, head on over to our shop at shop.CoinConcede.com. Big thanks to our producers, Calum CV, Viriatus, and...
It's so fluffy!
Yeah. And now, we're on to our coin concedes. So, Midgame, I'm going to call on you first. Who would you like to coin concede to this week?
I'd like to coin concede for Blister Guy for just happening that all of the coin concede listeners from Australia happen to be in one place, apart from Smiley Chris at the moment, and that's pretty cool. Just for being a solid dude.
I hope we have more
You
listeners.
should listen to Walk to Work.
Yes, Walk to Work is great. Blister Guy is great. I hope we have more than 3 listeners. But if it is in fact that 66%
In Australia,
of our
specifically in Australia,
I hope we have more Australian listeners. I really do. But if it is true that 2 out of 3 of them are right there, that ain't bad. That's what I hear about 2 out of 3. And Blister Guy,
yeah, you're not wrong.
thanks for coming on our show, buddy.
Hat said thanks for coming on the show.
But I didn't, so I can't hear you.
Thanks for being around the show. Thanks for being present while it's being recorded. Anyways, Botticus, who are you coin conceding to this week?
I'm going to coin concede to Midgame. Just really appreciate him coming on. It was kind of last minute, but I'm really excited to get this listener league going again. It was obviously a big thing for me after the first listener league, and real just excited to get it going again because I know a lot of people really enjoy it. So thanks for stepping in to help to run it, and looking forward to it.
No worries.
Yay. Thanks, Midgame. And thanks for coming on the show.
That's all right. It's been fun.
I agree. Appa, who are you coin conceding to?
I am going to coin concede this week to Teebs. And for those of you who don't know, Teebs is a professional Hearthstone player. And I'm using he because he said he doesn't know which pronouns he prefers yet. So he's a really big grinder and he's very good at the game. And he actually came out, I think, the last day of March as transgender on Twitter. And he says he's starting hormone therapy in May. And coming out is scary. And I have to give a lot of respect for that, especially on a platform like Twitter, to a notoriously kind of unaccommodating group, which is just video gamers in general. But luckily, the Hearthstone community is awesome. And he's gotten a lot of support already for it. And I just think that's great.
Agreed. Props to Teebs. And Teebs also, if you don't know him, he's really good at Hearthstone. So also that. So props to Teebs for being honest and courageous. For my coin concede, I'd like to give it to 2 people. One is Wicked Good. He had me on Off Curve earlier this week. It was a great episode. We talked about managing emotions during the rotation period. What to expect when you're expecting a set rotation, which I believe was a title that coined by none other than Blister Guy. So all of these circles are kind of interweaving. But it was a really fun episode to record, and we kind of worked out our catharsis about the difficulty that everybody has just waiting to get their game back, because right now it feels like Hearthstone is being held hostage, and we're just waiting for the fun police to let the fun out of the cage. And then I'd also like to give a shout out to Kresh. Kresh is a listener of ours. Actually, funny story, lives in the town I grew up in, which I didn't know until I started talking to him today, which is insane. But also is a professional audio engineer and helped me with some settings and just making the audio sound a little bit more polished. So big thanks to him for spending the time they didn't have to spend really helping make CoinConcede a better show. I really appreciate it. And now let's figure out where we can find people mid-game. Where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at MidgameHS and also add me in-game at Midgame #11585 or just shout me out in any of the Hearthstone Discords. I'm in all of them.
Fantastic. Botticus?
You can find me on Twitter at BotticusHS. Be great if you follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Botticus. I will likely be streaming this weekend. I was not able to stream last weekend due to the end of the season grind, so look for me this weekend. Should be fun. Been playing some Valley Rally Pally, and that deck's a lot of fun.
I like that it rhymes. Appa?
You can find me on Twitter at Appa_HS or on Twitch at twitch.tv/AppaHS. And you can also find that blog post that I was talking about. I'll probably link it on Twitter. And you can follow the blog from there. Because I really want to start getting into that more because I love writing about Hearthstone and I don't do it nearly enough.
I agree. Write more, please. I like your articles. And you can find me on Twitter at RidiculousHat, twitch.tv/RidiculousHat. I will be streaming tomorrow, Thursday night. And you can find me on Discord, wherever Hearthstone's discussed, typed at RidiculousHat, and I will appear. And that'll do it for our show. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming out. Keep calm and rogue on. And if you see us on the ladder, CoinConcede.
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 CoinConcede, bruh.
Take cold comfort in your victory. You win. I can rest now. You win. For now. Now, your victory proves nothing.
The day is yours.
I choose death. You have triumphed. This time, this hunt is yours.